which Dr. Prasad told me, which your professors wanted to cover, is what is the road ahead post COVID-19. And before we get into anything, let me first give a broad disclaimer. Nobody knows what is the road ahead from COVID-19. So what we are all doing is we are all speculating, and there is a lot of content that you're going to see. But what essentially COVID-19 has done, and that is the broad theme that I would like to maintain, is that it has actually created an event of a lot of changes that have been happening in the past decade or more. And that is exactly what we are going to focus on in terms of what lies beyond. What lies beyond is what always lied beyond. But COVID-19 has kind of given us that moment to think, to analyze, and to look back at what has happened in the past 20 years or maybe even longer, and therefore what lies. The perspective that I want to give you, as I said, COVID-19 in itself is just a moment, it's just an event that has happened. But this event actually is a very good time to look back towards the past 20 years as to what is happening. And I want, especially a large audience right now in this session, are students who are either in the final year, or maybe you are a part of some company, but you've just graduated pretty recently. So I do have a lead of about 20 odd years on each one of you. I am 20 years, almost 20 years, plus and minus a few years older than most of you. So if you look at the perspective that I had, I grew up in a world that was dominated by the Industrial Revolution. My parents, my father used to work. So my father used to work for BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electricals, and I grew up in a PSU township. I saw industry all around me. But when I was adolescent, in those years, the information revolution swept through. So the 90s, especially the late 90s, the information revolution was there. And for someone like me, I have lived in the information economy all through my working life. All of my working life has been spent in the information economy. I am myself an information worker. However, for the generation of today, you need to understand that you've not seen the industrial economy ever. You were not born in an industrial economy. Almost all of you have been born in the knowledge economy that we live today, in the information economy that we live today. You were born in this economy, and you therefore are going to be the generation which is going to see something different from what we are seeing. And with that, I want to really make this tall claim, which is that I believe that COVID-19 is going to help us get to Mars. So the next generation that is coming after the knowledge generation is the space generation. And why do I think so? So I have a theory on this. So if you look at some of the engineering innovations that have been developed by mankind over the last 20 years, you will realize that they will all get used on a Martian colony, which will help make mankind an interplanetary civilization. And of course, I think all of you must have heard of this guy called Elon Musk, who invests in companies around electric cars and has a space company and does so many other things. So Tesla and SpaceX are two companies by this guy. And anyway, so coming back, so let us look at some of the innovations that have happened in the past few years, right? I don't know if anybody has heard of Iridium, and I am pretty sure very few of you would have heard of it. Iridium was a project. It is a failed project, but it was a project launched in the 90s, which was basically a constellation of 72 low Earth orbit satellites meant to provide satellite-based mobile telephony to the entire world. So the idea was that there will be 72 satellites, low Earth orbit 72 satellites around the Earth. People's mobiles will directly work using a satellite phone. But then this project failed. This project failed because obviously we had the internet revolution come in fast, and a satellite can give you speeds of 256 kbps, maybe 500 kbps, and all of you must be knowing that 500 kbps is nothing in today's world. So what a fiber optic network could provide, Iridium could not provide. But Iridium was a project, so it's a concept. The concept is there are satellites orbiting the Earth, and these satellites will provide you direct cell phone connectivity. So this is one very, very important, and I'll connect the dot when I start. The second, you must have heard of the solar revolution. We are now hearing of something called a solar roof. So if you go to almost all Indian cities, of course now apartment complexes are quite common, but in semi-urban areas or even in tier 2 towns, rooftops are very common. And if people have invented what is called the solar roof, which is nothing but the solar panel, but it looks like the roof. So it not only keeps your house cool, but it also generates solar energy. So that is another innovation that has happened in the past 20 years. This is one of the innovations that has happened. Electric cars. I mean, who doesn't know about electric cars and the kind of e-mobility revolution that we are seeing all around us? In fact, right now, oil is at its all-time low cost. And while people might argue that oil is at low cost because of Covid-19 and industries have suffered and there is no demand for oil and there is lockdown happening. But you know what? Markets don't work like that. Markets always try to give value to something based on a long-term horizon. And the fact that oil has suddenly tanked is a long-term impact that we are seeing. Oil has tanked because investors were realizing that innovations such as electric cars are going to take away the importance of oil from our economies. And suddenly COVID-19 happens. So people who were even a little bit bullish about oil, even they have withdrawn. So what you are seeing, this slump, I can tell you this slump is here to stay. It's here to stay. It is something which is happening not just because of the fact that you have COVID-19 and lockdowns, but it is because of long-term impact that things like electric cars and even other solutions are going to have on the planet. Then I don't know how many of you have heard, I'm sure some of you have definitely heard about the Hyperloop. Hyperloop is a concept where they're going to dig tunnels under the surface and they're going to enable high-speed transportation through these tunnels. So this is possibly going to replace overground metros. It can replace overground trains, and it can even replace aeroplanes. So you might have a hyperloop. In fact, there are active discussions about hyperloop between Hyderabad and Chennai, Hyderabad and Bangalore, Bangalore and Chennai, Mumbai and Pune. There are active discussions right now going on with state governments where they're going to do this. So you won't need to. So it will be a thing of past to fly to get to the airport 3 hours before your flight, check in, waste your time for half an hour. Instead, you would just sit in your car, get to the nearest Hyperloop station, get to the Hyperloop levels, and with your car, you will possibly go from one city to the other and come back. And it will take almost the same amount of time that it today takes an aeroplane to go. So Hyperloop is another technology that's happening. Blockchain. I'm sure everybody has heard about blockchain. I will not go too much into detail about what blockchain is and what does it enable. But let us just think about it this way, that until today, even today, if you do not have a government, if you do not have a central bank like the Reserve Bank, you and me will not be able to do monetary transactions. If I have to pay you money, we need a central third party today to rely on. We need a government and we need a central bank, we need a Reserve Bank. Even if you take away the other functions of the government, you will still need a bank if you wanted to pay, if you wanted to have a commerce transaction to happen between two individuals. Blockchain is something that replaces this. So you no longer are going to need one government or multiple governments or one bank to pay money between two individuals. Two individuals can exchange money on the blockchain with the same amount of trust, same amount of security, without having a trusted central third party like a bank or a government. And that's another fundamental difference that's going to come. There's another innovation very few of you might be aware of, but it's a silent revolution and may not be very relevant for a predominantly vegetarian country like India, but extremely important when you look at it at the global level, which is lab-grown meat which does not come from animals. One statistic on climate change is that 20% of carbon emissions that happen in the world today are happening only because of livestock, only because humans eat meat, and to produce that meat you have to produce livestock, which is you have to feed the animal, and obviously then you cook the animal to eat meat, to make meat out of it. Lab grown meat is going to be much more cleaner way of it's going to help climate change in a big way, and this is a revolution that's been happening for a long time. And the last, as I say, is the coronavirus pandemic, which is going to come. And I'm not going to go too much into detail about what coronavirus pandemic is. Now let me connect the dots about how and why I think this is going to help us go to Mars. So think about a colony on the Mars. One of the biggest problems that Mars as a planet has, while it is very similar to the Earth, yes, of course it doesn't have oxygen, but let's assume that we create some kind of a colony which is protected, which has sealed, and therefore you are able to create Earth-like environment there. And gravity of Mars is almost similar to Earth. So it might be possible for humans to live, but you will not be able to have radio communications on Mars. Why? Because it does not have the ionosphere. It does not have an atmosphere, so it doesn't have an ionosphere. So while you might be able to create an artificial dome inside which humans will live, but how will these humans communicate with each other? You cannot have the internet, you cannot have cell phones on a planet like Mars which does not have ionosphere. And that is where I'm connecting the dot. Iridium is a technology that failed on the Earth, but this is a constellation of 72 satellites orbiting Mars is going to be the solution for absence of ionosphere on Mars. You're going to set up an iridium equivalent on Mars, and therefore you're going to use it for communications. A planet like Mars may or may not have enough natural resources like coal that we have on Earth. So we may not be able to produce electricity. In fact, for an initial settlement, even if we end up finding natural resources like coal on Mars, how are we ever going to power the first refinery or the first mine? Because you cannot go out and work on that planet. So solar is going to be the source of energy for the Martian colony, and this innovation, that these 20 years that we have spent perfecting the solar energy technology, are going to help us when we create that Martian colony. Electric cars, well, no doubt. I mean, you will not be able to carry petrol, and obviously there is no petrol on Mars. How did petrol come? Petrol got created because long ago there were forests. Those forests went under the sea, then they got sedimented, then they got pressurized under the pressure of the sea, and that whole thing got converted into, some of it got converted into coal, some of it got converted into petroleum, and that is the petroleum that we are today using to power our cars. You are not going to have that resource on a planet like Mars, but you are going to have solar energy, which you can convert into electricity. So the only method of private transportation or even public transportation on a planet like Mars is going to be electric cars. So electric cars are meant, yes, we are making them for Earth because we want to avoid climate change, but they are going to be the only way of transport on a planet like Mars. Hyperloop. So imagine there are two colonies on Mars, one on one end and the other on other end of Mars. With an atmosphere-less environment, it's not going to be possible for you to take a train from colony 1 to colony 2. The only way to travel is going to be underground. So again, the Hyperloop technology, where they are saying we are going to build tunnels under the earth is going to be more effective on a planet like Mars. Blockchain. A Martian colony is going to be an intergovernmental effort. No single government in the world alone will be able to set up a Martian colony. So if there are 5 Russians, 15 Indians, 10 Americans, and 20 Chinese, and so many people on Mars, how are they going to do commerce with each other? Right? They are going to need some form of a super government, some kind of a extra governmental power to do commerce between them. And they are going to then use the blockchain. They are going to use the blockchain to do that. And then lab-grown meat. Well, not everybody is a vegetarian. Humans are actually omnivorous. From the animal world, we are an omnivorous animal. So we need meat. And on a planet like Mars, where you will not be able to grow or feed livestock, you will not be able to have chickens, and you'll not be able to have other forms of meat. The only possible thing that humans will be able to eat is lab-grown meat. And now we come to the last one, which is the virus. So when you are in space, right? When you are in space, the biggest risk that we are going to face is unknown viruses. On Earth, we are protected. We are protected by our atmosphere. We are protected by our environment. We are protected by so many things, by the trees and the kind of ecosystem that we've built around. We are protected in so many ways. There are antibodies that you can produce because you are able to get constant sunlight on your skin. You may not be able to get that on a Martian colony. So dealing with viruses was one last thing that was required to set up a Martian colony. And coronavirus has given us that experience. It has given mankind the experience. How do you survive a virus which is impossible to control, which can be a pandemic, which may or may not be fatal, but it can be fatal for some of you. For example, in case of coronavirus, old people. And how do you control that pandemic? How do you live with the pandemic? How do you live? How do you operate? How do you continue to operate your society with a virus being around? So I think I've spoken a lot, and I'm sure all of you are wondering, why is this guy telling us all this? I mean, we are asking the question, what after the COVID happens? And I know one of the questions that is going to pop up is, should I get into a job, or should I apply for a post-graduation, and should I get more educated and all? And now I would like to connect the dots. So what I want to tell you is, why I told you about all these things is that just like my generation, while we were born in an industrial world, but we grew up in the information world, and therefore our decisions were primarily based on how would our future look like in the information economy. You guys will have to think differently. You have been born in the information world. So the information world for you is the equivalent of what industrial world was for me. So you neither love that world, you do not hate that world, because that is the reality for you. For me, that was the industrial world was the reality. I knew there was industry. I always knew that there will be factories, but I was neither attracted to a factory, nor was I, nor did I hate the factory. It just existed. It was a part of my identity. It was a part of what the world that I grew in. Similarly, for you guys, the internet is a part of what you've grown in. You've always had the internet with you. You've always had televisions with you. I mean, I belong to a generation which knows that there used to be, of course, a very small time. I mean, I was 5 years old when television came to India, but I know that there used to be a world without television. You guys don't know that. You guys don't know that there was a world without the internet. So just like we have thought about our future based on the fact that we have to operate in the information economy, I am telling you, by the time you are my age, mankind would have set up this Martian colony. We are at the cusp of becoming an interplanetary civilization. You are going to be ushering in the space revolution for real in the world. And so all your decisions have to be taken based on how will you survive and how will you prosper in this new world that is going to come up now. What is going to come up now is going to be the world that is going to be shaped by some of these technologies. I'm not saying some of you are going to be going on Mars, but what I'm saying is that all of you are going to contribute to some of these innovations that you see on the screen right now. You are going to be contributing to clean tech. You are going to be contributing to the blockchain. You are going to be contributing to mass mobility, e-mobility. You are going to be contributing to biotech. You are going to be contributing to pandemic control. These are going to be your battles. This is what you guys are going to be. You need to prepare yourselves for this. Just like my generation has built the information infrastructure of the world. We have built it. We are running it today. What I'm doing, for example, with my holidays portal is making information more easily accessible for people who want to go on a holiday, right? So my entire thought process is about what do I do with information? How do I play around with information? For you guys, that's just the present. You guys already are going to have all these pieces of the information puzzle laid out to you. What you guys are going to need to think about post-COVID is how do I contribute to the world where these things are going to become more relevant? How do I prepare myself so that I can contribute to mankind becoming the next version of itself, which is the spacefaring, the interplanetary civilization. So that's what I want to leave you with. I don't want to give you one answer saying, hey, go ahead and take that MTech or take that MBA or go for GMAT or go for GRE. I don't want to leave you with the thought that, hey, go ahead and work for 2 years and then take another post-graduation and then take up a job in a big four consultancy or in Amazon or Google or one of these what is called FANGs, FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google. I'm not telling you either because I don't know what's going to be good for you. In fact, if I knew what's going to be good for you, I mean, I will have to be of your age if I knew what is going to be good for you. So what I can help you with and what I've helped you with until this point is simply to say that there is a framework in which you need to think. You need to, unfortunately or fortunately, you have an opportunity to gaze into a crystal ball, to gaze into the future. I have given you a glimpse here. What is it that you are going to contribute to? So if you ever are faced with a decision, what do I do? The barometer is, which decision takes me closer to contributing to mankind's march forward into version 2.0 or version 3.0 or version 5.0 of mankind? I think that's the framework with which I would like you all to think about.